Hi, I'm Sarah Veblen. I'm here with a student and friend of mine, Steph, and she and I have known each other for quite a long time now. You might want to check out her blog. She periodically has some really interesting projects she blogs about. And Steph is here today, and we're going to be talking about what her journey has been like in getting to where she is. As she just said, she successfully made her daughter's wedding dress. She's done some really cool opera outfits as well as everyday kind of clothes. I think you just wore a pair of hot pink slacks to a business meeting.
Yes.
So can you tell me what it was like when you were sewing and really trying at first to get the kind of fit that you wanted?
Oh, that was frustrating. I was terribly frustrated. I had patterns to use, knew that the fit was not right, didn't know how to fix it. And if I got lucky by trying something, I had no idea then how to take those changes, bring them to the pattern, and then moving forward, how did I make those changes happen later? How did I take that knowledge and continue to use it without having to feel like starting over from scratch every time and being frustrated?
And had you done like a lot of sewers, a lot of research, read about this, read about that, tried this, tried that?
Yes, every single book that was out there I have. Every single one. And then, we're going old school here. And then when the internet started and we could get more and more information that way, that almost became worse because then you were getting everybody putting their 2 cents in and there was no clear method to move forward.
Yeah. I agree with that about fitting from reading on the internet. I think a lot of what happens is that somebody tries something and it happens to solve their individual issue. And then they put it out there, which is a service in one way. But a lot of people reading it think, well, this is the answer.
This will solve all my problems.
Yes, exactly.
And it does not.
Right.
And being a scientific person myself, I was craving a more, I don't know, for lack of a better word, a more scientific method, a better way to make it a method that I could follow that would work.
Right, which is really what I was striving for when as I developed my signature fitting method, was I wanted something that was reliable, that I knew worked, that I had confidence in, and that left me in control.
And it does. I was a little bit nervous at first because your signature method does require a little bit of extra work, but oh my gosh, you get through that little bit of extra work, you learn it, and you don't have hours and hours of bad garments and wasted time, and it's pretty amazing. So like a little bit of magic.
But it does take some extra work. I agree with that. And there is that, I view, as you well know, I view fitting as a process. It's not one and done by any means.
No.
And part of that process is to make a mock-up or a muslin, make your fitting changes, take those fitting changes back into your pattern, make a new muslin. So you want to make sure that's, I often call it proofing your pattern, that it's working. And I think you found in your fitting of yourself in your dress form, what I've found that often at that stage, I think, okay, I made some pretty significant changes, and I've put the new mock-up on myself or the dress form, and I think, oh, there's some other issues, some other fitting issues.
It's never just a one-step process, especially if you're looking for a high-quality fitted garment, say perhaps that you're going to use for work or for a fancy event or something like that, or a very tailored garment. It is definitely a process.
Yeah.
But the best is when you come out with this garment that you feel $1,000,000 wearing, and you almost forget that you're wearing it. It is so comfortable, and you can just concentrate on what it is you're doing, and you're not tugging, you're not readjusting,
You're not
you're not like, oh, this doesn't fit good. You just feel so comfortable in your skin that and you look beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the beauty is inside and out.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I discovered as I was developing my signature method is that process of going from mock-up, fitting changes, back into the pattern, into another mock-up, is that when certain fitting issues are solved, it then allows you to see other fitting issues that before you weren't able to see because all you saw were like the big glaring things.
Yes, it allows you to fine-tune those fitting issues for sure. And so you spend a couple things, but using that process that you have and then using that to develop master patterns really sets you free to keep moving forward, which is great.
Yeah. And in terms of moving forward, you really have relied on the master patterns. You've had some weight changes, which
I have. So I'm in the process of redeveloping all my master patterns. But, the process has become easier, and the longer I have done it, it does become much more intuitive as you go through it. So my advice to anybody would be to work through it, stick to it, and just keep moving forward.
Right. And just keep using those horizontal balance lines.
Oh my gosh, I could not sew anymore without having HBLs.
I know, it's a game changer, isn't it?
And it's amazing what you can see with those.
Right, how much information they give you. And I know you've done a draping class, a hands-on draping class with me, and then I think that's helpful in that you learn to read what happens when you move fabric this way and what happens when you move fabric that way. And that's really just what the fitting process is.
Right.
Rather than draping from a big piece of fabric, what you and I are inclined to do is from our master pattern, we might develop, maybe buy a new commercial pattern. Right. And all we're doing is we're manipulating that fabric on the body, but we have this framework.
Yes, that framework really helps. And sometimes it's actually fun to go buy a brand new pattern and work it through the process because you're like, I can make this happen. And, if it's, something's got very, very different details than what you have in a master pattern, or just, to test your own skills. It's fun.
Yeah. And do you feel like having gotten this under your belt, using the process, my signature fitting method, and having it just sort of be part of your own process, that you've been able to then concentrate on design and visual proportion in a different way than beforehand?
Absolutely. Yes. It really has allowed me then to experiment a lot more and play a lot more with different shapes and different, obviously different colors and when your clothes fit, I feel like you can start to experiment more with those things because it looks good. So you feel more comfortable doing that.
Yeah. In the last year, what are a few of your favorite garments that you made for yourself?
Ooh, oh my goodness. That's a hard question. There's a lot of them. I made an amazing dress for Chicago Frocktails. That was a 1940s inspired gown, silk charmeuse gown that I brought into up to date with the fabrics, the colors, and using this process. That was a hard one because those pieces were crazy. Those pattern pieces were really something different, and having those HBLs on there was the only way I could start to wrap my head around it. And then, of course, having you available to do private instructions online in real time or through emails with photos. That is a wonderful service that you offer to your students that can help when you do get stuck.
Yeah,
So,
which I love. And that way, in part, I get to see what you're working on.
Yes,
and
it's
making.
great. And then I've also made some really nice dress pants that, fully lined wool dress pants with all the details in them. And it's wonderful to just be able to have that master pattern and know that I can cut into that $100 yard fabric and know that this is going to be beautiful.
Right. It's that iterative process. You've done all of your mock-ups and all of your fitting, and then I think you do what I often do. I make a wearable mock-up.
Yes.
So I make, once I feel like I've got the pattern where I want it to be and the fit where I want it to be, then I'll take a fabric I like well enough to wear, but it's not my most precious treasure.
Right.
That if in case it bombs or there's some other little issue, and I make a wearable mock-up. And in fact, some of my wearable mock-ups have become favorite garments.
Isn't that so funny? They do. You're like, oh, this is great, and let's keep on wearing it.
Yeah, and it's a way to then prove out that all of your work did pay off. And then when you cut into that expensive fabric, you don't have, for me, it's a pit in my stomach. It's like, oh my gosh, is this going to work?
I know that the precious fabric doesn't get wasted. But it does also give you that confidence, right, to cut into that precious fabric.
Yeah.
And doing the wearable mock-up, I've found, there are some times where I'm like, oh, I want to change something a little bit. It's that fine-tuning that allows you to do that, which is nice.
And that charmeuse dress you wore to Chicago mocktails, frocktails, thank you.
I drank mocktails at the Frocktails.
And it was very unusual construction.
Yes.
And I think that's another benefit of using my signature fitting method is the process of fitting changes, pattern work, going back, making another mock-up, is that you become very familiar with the construction.
Yes, and that was key, right? So that if I practiced those bits several times in the tricky construction, things that we just don't do all the time, by the time you get to it in your fabric, you're in the real thing. Your hands can feel it. They know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You feel comfortable in it. You're not afraid that you're gonna make a big mess.
And I think that's how you felt when you did your daughter's wedding dress, the rayon and silk velvet.
Yes.
Is you'd done it enough in muslin fabric, you knew the construction, then there were problems to be solved about how to support the rayon and silk velvet and
especially
how to
in
handle
that big
it.
collar that she had. Yeah, and in fact I used some other, we did muslin first, and then I went into some extra silk and rayon velvets to use that to do a couple practice collars.
Just to make sure you had the support that you wanted.
Yeah, and it was great. So your signature fitting method allowed me to fit my daughter, who has her own fitting challenges with some scoliosis issues and asymmetry, and that I was able to do that. And I got it almost, I want to say probably 85% there, and then took advantage of some time with you to get it the rest of the way.
You really pretty much had it.
And it was, some of that was I just felt like I wanted the little bit of reassurance, especially on a dress that was so special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing I say a lot when I'm lecturing online is that you can do it. We can do it. And it's such an empowering feeling.
Absolutely.
And I think that goes hand in hand. Then when you wear the garment that you've created, that you've taken the time to fit and create, it's this feeling of, that you've gone through this process and you've ended up with this garment, but there's also something that happens on the inside of you.
Yeah, there's a feeling of accomplishment, of pride, of just the creativity blossoming within you. And it's amazing. So I said earlier that the process takes some time. Once you get through that process, you're off to the races. You can be as productive as you want and start churning out garments and making yourself happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me and chatting for a few minutes. We will make sure that there's some photos here for you to see, and I hope that this has been interesting to everybody who's taken the time to watch our little video.
Bye-bye.